Regarde, messieurs, behold my stuff. Today we are doing the FAMASenning. We are going to take a look at actually 4 different iterations of the FAMAS, only one of which, well, 2 of which are actually firearms. We have a Centerfire actual MAS 223 factory clone of the military rifle, but then there are 3 other versions of the FAMAS that have come out on the market that are legitimately FAMASes. At any rate, we have a 22 rimfire here. This is the Unique F11, which is a rimfire inside a FAMAS shell. We have the FAMAS Commando here, actually produced by GIAT, the same industrial company that made the FAMAS. This is a 4.5mm airgun, CO2-powered version of the FAMAS. And then, most recently, we have a Cybergun Airsoft FAMAS, but this is one that was actually part of a batch purchased by the French National Police for firearms training. These have now been imported by my friends at Navy Arms and are available. And like, yeah, it's an airsoft rifle, but it's actually an airsoft rifle with legitimate, not quite military, but police provenance to it. So let's go through what each of these are and how they work, and we'll start with the airsoft gun. All right, so this is a pretty legit copy of a FAMAS. You don't have to pull the bipod legs down to deploy them. It does have the grenade launcher sight in it. It does have an adjustable grenade launcher range ring, which is kind of cool. Originally, the muzzle was painted blue by the police as recognition that this was a training, an airsoft gun. Navy Arms, I believe, had to add the orange paint for US compliance, but it's a really crummy orange paint, and I bet it comes off extremely easily. It is standard airsoft pellets. It's an electric gun, so my on-off switch is down here where the selector normally is. That's off. Go to semi-auto. Why is my FAMAS not working? Look, I can work a regular one of these. So a couple things about this. First off, they actually put a little chip in the magazine. So while it holds something like 75 rounds, 75 pellets, it will only fire 25 and then it disconnects. In fact, the battery's not dead. I fired 25 rounds, so nothing until I reload with a new mag. And then I get 25 more shots because that is the actual magazine capacity of the gun. So for an official training sort of firearm, it definitely makes sense. You don't want people just to go mag dumping infinite ammo because it's an airsoft gun, so they limit it to 25 rounds per mag. The other cool thing about these is normally on a FAMAS you can swap from right to left-handed by changing around the bolt and the ejection port cover. You can actually do the same thing on these. You don't need to change the bolt because nothing's being ejected because it's an airsoft gun, but you can swap that ejection port cover from left to right to make it right-handed or left-handed. Switch over to 3-round burst. And I'm out of ammo again until I reload. They didn't add the charging handle functionality in the reload, but anyway, these are actually kind of cool. This is the only airsoft gun I own because it's frankly the only airsoft gun I was interested in, and they're now available from Navy Arms. So if you're interested, check them out. Next up, we have the FAMAS Commando. And these are actually manufactured by GIAT, who made the real FAMASes. They introduced this in 1987, and it is a CO2-powered target pellet style of airgun, just intended to replicate the FAMAS. In theory, their advertising literature says it's for training for young soldiers. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm not really sure. I don't think the Army ever actually used these. Although if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. If someone was in the Armée de Terre and got one of these for training practice, tell me. But I think it was primarily to accommodate public interest in the hot, swanky new Army rifle that the French had, Well, here's one that looks very similar. It certainly handles the same. It's a lot lighter than a real FAMAS, but because it's just a CO2-powered air gun, it was legally very easy to own. So in order to charge this, we're going to start with the air system. I have this lever underneath, pull that down, and then I lift this up, and that is where I put my CO2 cartridge. It's just one of these guys, non-threaded, sits in like that. There we go, all the way down, sits in like that. I drop it into place, and when I close the lever, that presses it in. There we go, breaks the seal. It is now ready to go, except for ammo. The magazine on this is just a dummy. The actual magazine is this little guy, which presents pellets right there. I have a loading port right here. So I pull the follower back, and I can drop 10 pellets in there, and then this guy loads into the pistol grip like so. And then what would normally be the oil bottle holder locks it in place, and we should be ready to fire now. Hear it? One little tiny bink. All right, I'm having to reset the trigger manually, and to be honest, I'm not sure if that's how it was supposed to work or simply because it's broken. But see if I can hit the small one. That was a miss. That was a hit. All right, it's got an absolutely atrocious trigger, like really, truly horrible trigger. And you can see the follower has moved up. So what it's doing is presenting a cartridge, a pellet, right here. When this gets to the top, this is pushed over, which allows the pellet to just fall out under air pressure. I think I've got 2 left. We'll just fire those off. Bink. Bink. That should be it. Yep. So I got air in there. In theory, 1 air canister is good for about 50 shots. The magazine, which is now empty, holds 10. That is the FAMAS Commando, aka the FAMAS Aprum. All right, next up, we are moving up the power scale. We have an actual firearm now. This is a Unique F11, Unique F11, calibre vendu, 22 long rifle. The F11 is basically just a common French 22 semi-auto rimfire plinker, specifically the Unique X51 Bis, inside a FAMAS-shaped plastic shell. It does use a 22 caliber magazine. In the actual magazine, we have an actual ejection port back here. I can cycle the action using the real charging handle. This cannot be switched from left to right. It's just a right-handed gun. That is my new magazine release. These were introduced in 1983. Also, well, made by Unique, but they were introduced right about the time that the FAMAS was coming into large-scale service in the French army, and I expect there was quite an interest in this cool new gun. It looks very futuristic, and the shooting public wanted to get their hands on something like it, just as we do today. And so Unique released this, although it appears that they only made about 1,000 of them. Now I get that number from Fabian over at BlokeOnTheRange. He has a complete full teardown video on one of these X11s. I'll link to that in the description text if you're interested in learning more about them. I haven't had a chance to do a full takedown on this one yet, so Fabian's video is quite good. Now this is a little bit on the finicky side. There we go. These originally came with 10-round magazines. I have managed to acquire one that I think is a 20-round. I've got 15 in it right now. Let's go ahead and see how it shoots. Switch over to right-handed. Oh, that was all of my ammo. That went fast. Semi-auto, 22 rimfire. Pretty darn cool. Let me reload it. I want to do another magazine of that. So because the production was really pretty small, the F11 Uniques are relatively scarce these days. Their magazines are also very scarce. The regular X51 Bis that Unique made did not use a magazine quite this long because it really didn't need to. The only reason the mag has to be this ridiculously long is because it's being fitted inside a dummy FAMAS, inside a dummy FAMAS magazine. So you can't use a standard X51 mag because they're just too short and they won't fit all the way up to the action. I was very fortunate, thank you very much, to the friend of mine who was able to procure this magazine, because when I got the gun, it didn't have a mag at all. One other thing to point out about this guy, one variation from the standard FAMAS pattern is normally you pull the bipod leg down and then that unlocks it to fold. On the Unique, what they did instead is just make the top element, oh, come on. The top ring here of the bipod is way too tight. Let's do this one. There we go. The top ring here is actually a nut. You have to unthread it and then you can lift it up and then screw it back down. That's how you deploy or undeploy the bipod on these, which is kind of, actually it's very clunky. That's, I mean, I'm not putting a group on paper here, but that's hitting exactly where I'm pointing it. The sights are kind of bizarrely almost identical to the real military FAMAS for setup and for adjustment. And I'm out again. Let me just show you this real quick. Disassembles like a FAMAS. I pull the pin, I pull off the handguard, and there you have your front sight. Rotate this to adjust the elevation, and then we have this. You rotate this and it pushes the front sight blade side to side. Again, that's set up exactly like a real FAMAS for sight adjustment, which is kind of cool. And that, of course, brings us to the belle of the ball, the real one, the MAS 223. Only about 200 of these were actually imported into the US and into Canada. They are the factory semi-auto version of the true lever-delayed 5.56 military FAMAS. A few differences between this and the military gun, which I have extensively covered in some other videos, which I will also link in the description text. But I'm not going to miss the opportunity to do some shooting with my real FAMAS while we're out here. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed this look at the whole wide world of the FAMAS. I'm sure you expected that if anyone owned all four of these different models, it would probably be me. Maybe there's someone else out there. But now, if you find one of these others available, or if you can't find the middle two and you can't find a real MAS 223, that Airsoft FAMAS is still a pretty cool piece of legit French security forces surplus at this point. So check those out over at Navy Arms. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.